Are you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, let's do it.
Welcome to another episode of Destination Linux podcast.
Welcome to episode 41. I'm Rocco.
And I'm Ryan.
And this is Destination Linux. This week, we are going to cover big news about... Huge news about AIM Messenger. More exciting news about the Purism phone, KDE 5, and much more. So stick around. So, Ryan, what have you been doing in Linux this week?
I've been distro hopping.
What?
Again. I admit it. I'm addicted to distro hopping.
We have a number for that, right?
Yeah, distro hopping anonymous.
That's right.
My name's Ryan, and I'm a distro hopper. I've been playing with Peppermint Linux. I know you know nothing about Peppermint.
I don't know anything about Peppermint
Never
Linux.
even heard about it, right?
Never.
Wait, is that the right way to pronounce it, or is it pronounced cinnamon in Linux world?
It may be pronounced spearmint, but...
So I've been playing with Peppermint Linux. I loaded it on my laptop. It's absolutely gorgeous. You kind of get the best of both worlds. You get this LXDE desktop environment, light, fast, amazing, and then you get some of the Xfce paneling in there. Everything just works, so I hate it.
So you hate it. So what you're saying is you have an operating system that does everything you want out of the box.
Everything you could imagine and more.
It works fine.
Yep.
It runs great.
Yep. Check.
It's got everything you need.
Got all the programs I use on it. They all run flawlessly.
And you don't like it?
Nope. No, I like it a lot. It's really good. But for whatever reason, well, first of all, not everything was perfect. The installation, there was some issues getting it installed due to the Broadcom Wi-Fi that, let's just say, I either had a really bad ISO burn or something, but it took me at least an hour and a half to get the thing installed, doing some workarounds. But eventually got past those and got it installed. And Peppermint's beautiful. Everybody who's recommended it to me, they were right. It's a fantastic representation of kind of mixing two worlds and making them great. But I kept thinking about MX. Do you remember MX? Have you tried MX16, right?
MX16, yes.
Yeah. And it's, MX, I didn't feel like I ever gave it enough time. When I installed it, I think we were doing a video on it. I installed it on a secondary SSD. I played with it and I thought, wow, I love this thing, especially the installer. The installer is the best installer out there MX has, in my opinion, because of one simple thing. At the very end, it asks you, where do you want to install the bootloader? And it makes it a very specific, its own section. And for me, screwing up your bootloader is it's kind of a part of the transition. But especially when I was newer, I really appreciated that when I didn't know any workarounds, and I always ended up messing up my bootloader and losing the Windows installer or whatever when I was just trying out Linux. And with MX, it just makes it so easy to choose. And other distros do too once you get to know what you're doing, but they're not as apparent. In MX, if you're a new user installing it, it's there. And then everything's just highly accessible. They have a fantastic installer that has, their trusted, tried and true programs. But then they have their MX16 section, kind of like how Arch has the AUR, and you can click on that and get some third-party, software downloaded like Telegram and things like that. So MX was really cool. So that's what I've been playing with this week, and a little bit of a peek this way in the back corner. You may see the shell of a computer, and that is because the Ryzen CPU is on its way right now.
Nice.
Yeah, so that will be coming up.
Well, I have played around with Peppermint, and I absolutely love Peppermint. I have family members on it, and it works awesome. I have played around with MX16. We actually had Dolphin Oracle from MX16 way back early. I think it was episode 3. So maybe we'll have to have him back on to talk about MX16 or maybe what's coming up in MX17. Who knows?
Well, that would be awesome to have them in there because I'm pretty sure at some point my desktop's going to go to MX16.
Well, there's big news, Ryan.
What's the big news?
Big, huge news of the day.
This is everybody better be sitting down, hold on to your chairs tight.
AIM, AOL Instant Messenger, is shutting down.
Oh, I thought the shocking news was that people still use it.
That's exactly the thought that goes through your mind when you read this article. Really? People still use it? I mean, I still have my AIM account because I never deleted it or anything. But, I mean, I haven't used AIM in years. Like, people actually still use it.
You have your collection of AOL CDs you've kept forever, right?
Well,
one of your personal prized possessions.
Don't say that. You remember when Philip was showing his magazines?
Yeah, you got AOL CDs. You know, the thing that's important to talk about here, though, is that if you're still using your AOL AIM.com email address, it's still going to work. So Alanis Morissette Rocks 2945 at AOL.com. Still gonna work. Don't you worry.
Right.
It'll be there. So I know that's one of your favorite services.
Well, let's not spend too much time on AIM. I just thought it was pretty hilarious myself.
All right, fine. Let's move on to something more Linux centric here.
All right, let's do it.
Purism. I hear they're not doing well. Like they're failing terribly on their Kickstarter. They've only raised like 1.5 million of their 1 million goal.
It's
how embarrassing.
It's ridiculous that they would put out their own Kickstarter on their own website, not use any other product to actually raise money, and just make it like, with, I don't know, 15 days left in the campaign, they just blew away the number. So
it's incredible. I mean, they're partnered with KDE and GNOME.
Mm-hmm.
This to me shows you, we've talked about this in the past episodes about how I just felt like between Apple and Android, there really needs to be a third player. And this really shows you how hungry the market is for a third player. I mean, they've raised the money. They raised it incredibly fast. They met their goal. And some of the key features of this phone, do any of these features you look at interest you specifically?
I'm totally not interested in a private phone. I mean, I use Google Chrome for crying out loud.
My bad. You're like, I want trackers enabled, not disabled.
Right.
No, but some of those features like tracker being enabled by default, privacy protection on by default, layered secure. I wonder if that means you couldn't install Chrome on it, by the way.
You might not be able to install Chrome. It just might break the whole system if you try to install Chrome. No, but the greatest thing about this is they're now up to 1,658,000 at the recording of this video.
That's incredible.
Which is 110% of their goal, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I am so happy for them, and I love if you go onto their Twitter, the amount of people supporting them and congratulating them. There's a lot of people behind it. You can still get your hands on the device. You can pledge $599, still a lot less than the iPhone or new Samsung devices, and get your phone. But of course, you won't be able to receive it till January of 2019. So that's a little bit of a long time to wait.
Well, okay, and that's the risk in backing something like this. You really never, you don't have any guarantees that it's actually going to come out. It seems exciting, and it is exciting, and it's great that we're going to actually work to get this. But whether it actually comes to fruition is another whole story. We'll see. And, there's a lot of people that want it, man, obviously.
Yeah, clearly. So there's some news in one of your favorite desktop environments in the world, KDE Plasma.
KDE Plasma 5.11, baby.
How excited are you? Not at all, because you're on GNOME.
I'm on GNOME right now, so I'm really not excited. No, no, it's always exciting to see KDE, add these updates to it. And 5.11 is no different. It brings some great new features. So it has a new design, a redesign of the KDE system settings area, which is it's been so needed for a long time. I mean, there was always that white space area in KDE settings, and it would never automatically adjust if you raised the window up or made the window bigger. So it's got a completely redesign of the KDE system settings. And I think one of the biggest things it has is the notification history.
Yes. We were talking about this earlier in the show, and I thought it was so funny because we both mentioned the fact that sometimes you would see those notifications pop up, Katie, and then you were doing something, so you didn't pay any attention to it, and all of a sudden it goes away, and you don't know what it was, and you can't find it back. So having that notification history, I think, is pretty awesome to be able to go back. And then if you walk away from your machine, for instance, if somebody else uses your machine, if you have a shared computer, and they don't care about those notifications, you could go back then after you get on the computer and see what was there in use. So I think that's an awesome capability there. But there's more than just the notifications. What else do we have?
So what do you think of Plasma vaults?
I think it's an awesome idea. This enhancement allowing you to lock and encrypt documents. So now we can keep our show notes secure from all those prying eyes.
I'm telling you, there is such a problem that we have with people stealing our ideas, talking on Destination Linux, that this is like a great feature. So we won't have to worry about that any longer.
Yes, they will no longer steal our super secure notes that we post with every podcast. But no, I think this is a great idea. You know, there obviously are software applications you can download that do this. But having it natively built in where you can go and encrypt some files, especially if you deal with sensitive business documents or anything else, super useful, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are programs out there that allow you to encrypt things, but this is built in. And it's not something that I'm going to like readily use because I don't encrypt my documents because I use Chrome. I mean, why would I need to encrypt my documents? But
Google already knows.
But either way, it's a great thing to have built into it. So there's also app launcher menu improvements and folder view improvements. So I don't know, man. I think this is not like an earth-shattering, groundbreaking release, but it does add some great features to it.
This is all that refinement. And one of the things I can't believe you skipped over was KWin can now apply scaling based on pixel density. For Wayland, the pixels will be perfect.
So they say. I'll be the judge of that.
You get your magnifying glass out, like, no.
I am going to have to try it out, though. I'm probably going to end up installing Neon or something on another drive and
are you itching for some KDE?
I'm itching to try it out and see. Because, you know, look, I'll be honest with you. In the last couple months, 2 months, 3 months, I have not had much success in installing KDE and not having issues. I usually have issues in the last couple months when I install it, and that's why I'm still running GNOME. But we'll see.
It was interesting. KDE's Twitter page announced this, and there was a couple of people who replied back saying, I really hope you spent some time fixing the bugs in there as well. So apparently some other folks have kind of noticed some bugginess within KDE.
Well, there is, and you'll talk to some people and they'll ask you like what the problem is. And a lot of it may be due to specific hardware. Yeah. You know, like I switch sound outputs all the time, and they added in the last update an option in the sound settings to switch to your default sound settings right from the menu, which is awesome.
Right.
And when I had tried it, I switched to it, and some of my sound switched to it, and some of it didn't. So I had some sound like browser sounds coming through the headphones, and then I had other system sounds coming through the speakers, which I had switched from. Right. So it was kind of, like I said, it was a little buggy and everything. So hopefully this works things out.
We both had that issue at the exact same time, because that was during our 3 a.m. migration, wasn't it?
Yep. And I will say that go watch the Plasma 5.11 video. Michael Tennell created it. And he created it for the KDE team, so go check that out.
Very good. So Ubuntu, they don't get enough, they don't get enough press.
No.
They're really discriminated against press-wise. But they have, of course, are releasing finally on October 19th, the 17.10 Artful Aardvark. And so if you have been missing out of the Linux news for a while and you're wondering, well, what does that include? Unity's gone, GNOME's in, 3.26, custom docks, Windows moving out of the way when you move your window toward the dock, which I love, by the way, streamlined system settings, wallpaper switching, notifications on the lock screen like you have on your phone, Linux kernel 4.13, switching to Wayland. It's all kinds of changed. So
the question is it all good change or?
I think that is a highly debatable topic, isn't it?
Well, okay, so we have to wait for the final release to come out before we make any judgments on it. But it is going to be, I think, one of them topics that is never going to end. You're going to have people that love it, and you're going to have people that hate it. And it's always going to be a heated argument, and you're going to have good points on both sides. But either way, I think it's going to be one of those you're not going to win.
So, I mean, they've had the ability to obviously go download the beta version for a while now. I mean, the alpha, the beta, now they're in final beta. Do you think there's really going to be that much shock that's going to come from it? I mean, the people who are in the camp that hate it are going to be in that camp when it releases. Do you think there's going to be a whole bunch of buzz when it officially comes out where people are like, oh my God?
No, I think people's minds are already made up as far as those people that are in those camps. Like, if you love it, you're going to love it when it comes out. If you hate it now, you're probably going to hate it then. I think the big test will be the people in the middle who aren't sure how they feel about it when it comes out and how it installs. You know, like you had always said before that Ubuntu just works. So is it going to be that same distro that you can just take and install and it'll just work every time? Those are the opinions that I'm looking forward to see how they turn out.
And it will be interesting because 17.10 crashed hard on my main desktop while it was still in testing, which is important to denote. And I think a lot of it, based on the symptoms, had to do with the Wayland switch. So we'll see how all of that works out when it's officially released.
Yep. All right, so we have another release. It's actually just a snapshot release. But
I mean, it's not Ubuntu?
It's not Ubuntu.
Oh
Ubuntu
God.
is not the only release.
Imagine that.
All right, so Chakra 2017.10, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name. Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead, try to pronounce it.
Oh yeah, because you know I don't care. It's Go Fish.
Stop it.
I know it looks like it's Goedel or Goedel, but it's that's what it looks like. It's Goedel, which means it's probably nothing like that.
It's probably nothing like this. Okay, so Chakra started out in 2006, where Arch Linux users had the KDE mod packaging project, and they wanted to. They started the KDE mod packaging project in 2006. So they forked this off of that in 2008, and they created Chakra because they wanted to be tightly integrated with KDE. So in August 30th of 2010, the first independent version called Chakra 0.2 was released. So now we are up to 2017.10. So with this new release comes Plasma 5.10.5, because 5.11 is just coming out now. So you have new versions of Xorg server and graphics drivers. You have support for Mesa. You'll also notice they're dropping support for Catalyst. What do you think?
It doesn't affect me, but it's an interesting move.
For those one or two people that use AMD graphics?
Yeah, I mean... Oh wow, we're gonna get some.
It's gonna be some hate mail coming.
Oh man, did you open a can? It doesn't affect. This is kind of, to me, kind of goes through the whole 32-bit discussion again. Like you at some point you got to stop supporting some of the older stuff out there. But I'm sure that may upset some people. But I would imagine they've done some research to determine that the amount of folks that will impact on their machines is minimal.
So they've updated the Calmar's installer and their themes as well. So have you ever tried Chakra?
I have not. The only time I've ever heard of Chakra is on Xena Warrior Princess, because that's what she throws. But I've not actually. Come on. No? Nothing? Nobody? All right. No, I've not used it. And honestly, I hadn't heard of it before, but you have.
Well, it's been highly recommended by a few people that I know, if you like KDE. So if you're a KDE fan, there's not a time where you won't find somebody recommending Chakra. I didn't actually have a chance to download it and play around with it. I have in the past downloaded, installed it, but like the last time that I did, I downloaded it, installed it, I was checking it out, and in the middle of checking it out, I had an issue on my main system where I had to test out what I was going to put on it. So I had to nuke and pave that partition before I actually got a chance to play around with it and make a video on it.
Right.
So I didn't get a chance to play around with it, but it seems like something that I would enjoy.
Yeah. Well, you're on Manjaro now full time, so you're on the Arch-like bandwagon already.
Yep.
And so is this a situation where you think you'll stay with Arch? I mean, when you distro hop again, where do you think it will land? Will it be with another Arch-like distro, or will you be trying Aardvark or something?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was just thinking about that the other day, and it came to light like, okay, right now I'm running Manjaro GNOME, and I have no issues.
Right.
Everything's running great. Then this has not been my experience with Arch or Manjaro in the past.
Right.
But everything's been running great. The only thing that like makes me would think I would want to, go back to an Ubuntu based situation, and I never really thought I would hear myself say this, but like I wanted to try out the fork of Nihilus Mail, which was MailSpring. And right now there's no package in the Arch user repository for it.
Right.
So I can't install it and check it out, but there is a deb file. And I'm thinking to myself, this is like backwards. This is like Bizarro World. It should be that it's in the Arch user repository and we're waiting for a deb package.
Everything's there. Right.
but I think I'm going to stick around with Manjaro, because like I said, I've switched before where I had GNOME on and had no reason to switch from it. And I did switch from it and I regretted it. So I think I'm in the same position right now where I have Manjaro GNOME installed. Everything's running great. And unless I have some issue where I need to switch, I think I'm going to stick with it.
So Chakra could be a contender though in the future.
Could be. I'm definitely going to check it out. But it could be a contender.
Well, all this talk about GNOME and KDE, and we really need an article about Xfce. So
we might have to wait.
The greatest desktop environment ever released.
Really?
It doesn't require tons of tweaking because it was already perfect to begin with.
Oh my
Has a PulseAudio plugin 0.3.
You have drank the Kool-Aid.
It really is gorgeous. I love Xfce. But some of the features of this plugin is easier to adjust audio volume, extended support for multimedia players using Impris and Dbus interface, and more easily toggle the default audio input device, which is probably one of my favorite features of this plugin that you can do. Because right now you kind of got to click on the sound icon in your panel, then you got to go to sound settings. But Rocco was showing off earlier and like, look what I can do. And no.
Look, right? It's always been that way. Where if you want to change outputs, you have to go into the sound settings. You got to do it for Xfce. You got to do it for KDE. And that was what I was talking to you about, that option in the menu where you could switch to default, but it wasn't working for me. And one of the main reasons why I went off of KDE and back to GNOME, but in GNOME, I can just switch outputs through an extension and it works perfectly every time.
Right.
So this is exciting to see. Xfce may be able to get something like that in the future. Sure. So this is not completely ready for prime time yet. It is in the dev stages, but we'll put a link to it. If you are on Xfce and you want some more sound options, you may want to check this out.
So this is getting into the territory where I feel like at some point you're going to go, I told you so, in this next article.
No, I would never do that to you, dude.
So we make fun of you a lot for Chrome, and most of it justified.
Right.
But in the news this week, I started to shrink back in my chair a little bit, thinking about this moment here after reading this article. Mozilla pilots Cliqz engine in Firefox to slurp user browser data.
So what the heck is going on at Mozilla,
wait a minute. Don't you start freaking out yet, Rocco. Let's just talk through
what
this.
The heck is going on at Mozilla, dude?
So Mozilla apparently bought this company at some point, or they're a big investor in Cliqz. I don't know which. But they say that they're going to pilot this technology that Cliqz has with only 1% of its user base. And only its user base within Germany. But they're going to apparently start grabbing not user identification, but grabbing user data, browsing data habits, and then that's going to be sent to Cliqz, and Cliqz is going to strip out all of the personal identifiable info out of that browsing data and send what's less, if you trust all of this now, to Mozilla. That's kind of how I understood it in reading.
So what you're saying is we're watching The Wizard of Oz and the guy's back there saying, don't worry, don't look at behind the curtain. There's nobody back there. Don't worry about it. Everything is fine.
Well, it only affects Germany.
It only affects 1%. And I love the update to this article where it says Mozilla insists that the pilot program will improve user privacy, not lessen it.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Look, this is not a huge deal as far as it's not going to affect me. It is only 1%, and it is in Germany where I am not located, so it's not going to affect me personally. But it's the idea, it's the, as you put it when we were talking in the pre-show, the philosophy change of Mozilla where they keep adding this stuff. They already do use Google Analytics for the add-ons. We're going to have another article after this about Mozilla. They're adding this pilot program. It's just their whole philosophy is changing. I can no longer look at them and say they are the bastion for privacy and freedom, because they seem to be making decisions that are Google-ish, for lack of a better term.
You're right.
And I don't understand why.
So again, it's a small test, and we have fans in Germany, obviously, so we joke when we say, well, it doesn't affect us. If it affects anybody, it affects everybody.
I don't really care about those people over there.
How dare you?
No, you're right. If it affects anybody, it affects everybody. It's right. It's ridiculous.
And Cliqz is based in Germany, so that's obviously why they're kind of doing their tests there. But Firefox sends data. This is some of the data they're going to be collecting: operating system information, hardware configuration, memory, basic info, which that could be anything, crashes and errors, outcome of automated processes, safe browsing and activation data. They will also send your IP address temporarily is collected in their server logs, but they're going to strip that out.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
These people. They're like your best friends.
Right.
Of course they're going to get rid of it.
They're like Big Brother.
They're like Google.
Right.
So I know people are going to be really upset in the comments and be like, oh, you guys are blowing this out of proportion and it's just a small test and blah, blah, blah. But I as a Mozilla fan, Firefox fan, you guys know that I've rode Rocco and said, oh, you need to get on the Firefox bandwagon, blah, blah, blah. To me, this is a big deal. It's a philosophy change, as we mentioned. I understand why they're doing it from a business perspective, and I want to make that clear. I get it. You want to compete on Google's level. They're collecting data. They understand more details about their users than Mozilla does. And it's important that if they're trying to keep up from a straight competitive advantage, that they try to be on the same playing field. At the same time, the playing field that you're entering is the very thing that separated you from your competition to begin with. So at the very least, I would say you're on very dangerous grounds here. And pursuing this any further or even going forward with it in the current manner as the way it's explained in the article. And we know that news isn't always 100% accurate. But as it's explained right now, and I did go to Mozilla's site directly to read their comments, it doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good.
Well, for me, I use Chrome. So I realize that there is going to be a trade-off in privacy. Okay, so you use Firefox. And for me to switch back to Firefox, what would be the reason that I would switch back to Firefox? It would be for privacy reasons, because it's not like it performs better. So everything I need Chrome to do, it does. Okay, and it does it just as fast or faster than Firefox. So there's no reason for me to switch to Firefox or back to Firefox, with the exception of the privacy aspect. And when you take that away, there is no reason for me to switch back.
Yeah. And it's not like it's gone yet, right? There's a lot of things that Mozilla does. For instance, this next article is going to completely change your mind.
It's going to completely change your mind on it. You're going to...
Mozilla's in the news for changing their review process. So if this isn't going to win you back, did you know Mozilla manually goes in and checks these apps to make sure you do not end up getting some malicious app, extension in your web browser, like what happened recently with Chrome? You remember that story, Rocco?
I do remember it. They
manually check. So when you talk about security, they're the best. Now get into the news story.
Okay, so they're no longer going to manually check the add-ons. And the reason behind it is it produces a lengthy review process and a very big pain in the neck for developers who want to get their add-on onto the Mozilla AMO and updates as well. So the manual check is going away, and they're going to go to a Google-esque automated process. Now they say they're still going to check them manually after they get on the store.
Right.
But to get on the store, it's no longer going to be a requirement to be checked manually. What do you think, Ben?
We know that AI at Google works so well because that plain sentence that in that last news article that was like, this is going to hack you practically, didn't get caught. So we're assuming Mozilla has some special AI that Google doesn't have that will be better than that. Now, I'm not a big web extension person. Honestly, I think I have 3 web extensions total installed. So I don't go and install the latest web extensions and fill my browser with them, but a lot of people do. And if somebody's switching over to a distro and Firefox is the default browser, they may go in and then start looking at extensions and downloading new stuff. And some of that stuff could be new. And now you've got the potential for exploits and things like that to obviously hit and happen, which has happened with Google. Now, again, they're saying, well, we're going to check it manually afterwards. That could be too late. How many people could be infected in between? This was a big security advantage Mozilla had over Chrome, in my opinion. And now it looks like it's gone. Now, this is good for developers. Again, their focus is on business. They are clearly moving into, we've got to compete and we're going to make decisions to compete, not necessarily go with what our user base typically wants. We're going to focus on developers because the world is about apps. The one with the most apps wins. So that's the decision that they've made. Love it, hate it, like it. I guess that's where they're going with it. So we'll see. But if I was already hurting, one malicious app in Firefox could literally really wipe them off the map.
Yep.
Whereas Chrome would survive and has.
It seems to me that, like I said, the biggest problem is the philosophy change of we're going to make decisions. And I get it. I mean, like you said, it's a business decision and not everybody's going to like your decisions. So it really doesn't matter whether me personally, I don't like their decision. They're going to do it anyway. And that's the way it is. But I think there's a whole philosophy change that is going down it's going down the wrong path. It's going down the business path towards other companies trying to emulate them because they see that they're successful. And I could be completely wrong. I mean, maybe they're going to be successful in this because Google's successful in this as well. But I think you lose your, for lack of a better term, you lose your soul when you go down this path. So we'll see.
Or your core base to see. Now that we're all switching to Chrome, give me some good news on Chrome.
Well, I don't know how I feel about this. Okay, so Google Chrome now uses native GTK window buttons on Linux. So there is an article on OMG Ubuntu about it. And to be honest with you, I used this to my advantage when I would have different profiles. So I have one profile, my main profile that I use. And I'm sure you're going to be able to change it, but this is the way I used it. I have regular GTK window borders when I'm on my main profile. But if I'm on one of the other ones that I don't use, but I need to check every once in a while, I'll leave it on the default. And that allows me to see in plain sight the difference between the accounts that I'm on.
Use case of it. Okay.
So it's a good thing that they are using it because that's one thing that always drove me nuts. I had to go in every time I installed Chrome on an operating system. I had to go in and change it if I didn't have my sync. So I'd have to go change that to GTK. But so it's a good thing that it's coming. It's just that for me, the use case is I need it to not work.
Yeah. Well, they're working on the minimize, maximize, and close buttons to respect the user settings. I imagine you could appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, Google's coming in. I really get this weird feeling.
That's it. We just all need to go down to Google. Chrome.
I get this weird feeling that Google is going to be a unsung hero for Linux here. I don't know exactly. We talked about this on Friday Night Live about the Chromebook.
Yep.
I believe is coming out. You know, we're getting lots of publicity from a Linux standpoint because of Android and some of the things they're doing.
Yep.
People talked about, well, the games on the Chromebook, because the new Chromebook looks amazing if you haven't seen it. But the games on the Chromebook, even though obviously it has some Linux base to it, well, they're not going to bring the big gaming companies into it, so it's not going to improve gaming. But we talked about that with Michael. But I kind of thinking maybe they will, because the big game companies, by the way, are creating mobile apps all over the place. EA, all of them have their mobile apps out there. When Fallout 4 released, they created a mobile app game with it. So there could be some things with this, as much as we make fun of Google and stuff, where Google is going to start bringing some more attention to the Linux world. Who knows?
Well, that's a good thing. I mean, it's, there was that article last week about the 6%, and I don't think it's that high, but it all depends what you consider Linux. So I don't consider necessarily Chrome OS Linux. I mean, I guess it's based off of that.
Right.
But me personally, I don't consider Linux, because I would think, let's put it this way. If I want to see a number of the percentage of sharing of the percentage share of Linux, I want to see it from numbers from like Ubuntu and that. I don't really want to include Android and Chrome OS. I want it to be where the Linux desktop is driving those numbers. But hey,
somebody who's not had exposure to Linux, if you go up to them and you're telling them, hey, you need to use Linux. By the way, your Android phone uses Linux.
Yep.
And they're a huge Linux fan or Android fan. They're going to be like, really? Okay, now I'm kind of interested. Or your Google Chromebook OS is based on Linux. So there's kind of some bridges there with some new user bases, and probably that 6%, as some people have alluded to, included some of the Android or Chrome OS stuff out there. It's interesting because they could be one of these folks that help bring a lot of attention to Linux. And ultimately, once we get them here, we can all convert them off of that junk. Move them to something like Xfce, right?
Right. Well, let's go back to Plasma for a minute. You remember the Plasma Vault that we talked about? Yes. Okay, so maybe the guy in this next story needed that.
Oh, really? Maybe that's what they designed it for.
So
this story's crazy.
Go ahead. Gosh. So Russia reportedly stole NSA secrets with the help of Kaspersky. Is that what we came to the conclusion of how you said Kaspersky? What we know now. This is an article on Ars Technica. And there is so much information out there, so much misinformation out there. It's hard to weed through everything and get a real feel for exactly what happened. But in any case, there was somebody that worked for the NSA who took files home, probably shouldn't have taken files home, and somehow they got into other hands. Okay.
Right. All allegedly.
All allegedly. The allegations are that somehow Russian hackers through Kaspersky's antivirus saw or did a scan and saw that these were malware, found what they were, sent them back to Russia, blah, blah, blah. And there's all kinds of conspiracy theories around it and everything else. But you were talking about the point driving this. What do you think the point driving this is about?
The biggest point to me is, why is the government employees allowed to install whatever antivirus software they want on their machines? Coming from a corporate environment, and I am not allowed to install whatever I want on my machine. It's extremely locked down. If IT says we use this antivirus software, we use this Word program, those are the approved software that we use. Now you're dealing with the NSA here. And apparently you get a laptop from the NSA and they're like, do whatever you want with it. You want to go install all the web extensions in Firefox that are untested? Go for it.
Go right ahead. Well, okay, this is an independent contractor that this happened to. But either way, you're right. There should be some protocol in place to say, okay, even if you're an independent contractor, this is what you're allowed to do and this is what you're not allowed to do.
Exactly. I mean, we have independent contractors we work with all the time, and they have to follow our IT policy. They have to follow our CP&I policies for customer data retention, everything. So you can't just, excuse them because, it was a contractor working with the NSA. No, you still need to have standards that you set. And if those standards are broke, I would imagine there would have been jail time and all kinds of other things involved in it, like it would for most people. But I don't know if these are true. All this is alleged. Again, we'll state that, but it's been all over the news. And Kaspersky has been in the rumor mills forever because they're a Russian company that they've been feeding or having backdoors and all of this different stuff. Whether it's true or not, we'll never know. But I guess if I was somebody who used that software, I would probably uninstall it.
You think?
Just to be safe. And maybe just some advice to the government, switch to Linux and put some standards in place.
Yeah, no, they've tried that and they switched back to Windows. Oh, that was over there. So look, we've talked about all this bad news, dude. Give me some good news, will you?
How about NVIDIA 387.12 Vulkan versus OpenGL benchmark test? That sound more exciting?
That sounds way better than this whole privacy, stealing secrets kind of stuff. So let's talk about it.
Well, I've been super excited about Vulkan. I know I'm not easily excitable, but Vulkan's been one of the most, one of those things that I feel like could bring gaming into Linux, has the most hope for it, bringing AAA gaming into Linux. And so recently there was some tests done on an Intel i3, an i5, and i7 using a GTX 1060, playing games Serious Sam, Mad Max, and Dawn of War 3, all of which support Vulkan. That's why they were chosen for this. And they did some tests between those two drivers, and Vulkan killed it. I mean, killed it. So one of the most fascinating parts for me was the CPU usage drop between using OpenGL and Vulkan. And obviously the performance improvements were there. So it wasn't just the CPU drop and the performance wasn't as good. The performance was anywhere from, depending on the benchmark and what was being run, a few percentage points up to 60% improvement in performance from the graphics standpoint. But also in your CPU usage, you're looking at dropping from 37 to 25% in some cases, and on the i5, 24% to 17%. On the i7, 12 to 8%. That's a lot of CPU that Vulkan's giving back to you. And I thought that was quite impressive. What do you think? On
top of giving you an extra, most of the time, 10 FPS.
Right.
So you're not only getting the CPU usage back, but you're also getting a small bump in FPS as well. And, Vulkan is, we talked to Michael Larabelle last week. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't seen that show, you should go check it out because he brought a ton of technical knowledge about gaming in general on Linux and Vulkan. So how Vulkan will affect gaming on Linux in the future is kind of up in the air, but it's exciting to see these little improvements here and there because it builds on the whole experience. And, like I said, it's not a huge jump, but it's every little bit helps. And with the FPS and the CPU, it's a win-win, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're trying to push your game and you want to make the most beautiful game possible and push what's capable with graphics out there, giving people some of that CPU back or utilizing that for other things within your game is definitely going to be an advantage for developers. So I hope more developers are taking notice. And like Michael said, we're still really early with Vulkan, so time will tell. Really, next year will be kind of a key time frame to see how many game development studios and things start utilizing Vulkan and supporting it, but very exciting. So now that we've had some happy news, let's get right back into some ugly news.
What's the ugly news?
Is it okay to suck at games?
Well, we would probably be the experts in asking that question.
You don't even have to ask it. We're the answer. It's completely fine. And we even get people to watch us play while we suck at games, don't we?
Well, there was an article at Green Man Gaming, and it's a guy who plays games, and, he says, I'm bad at video games, and it's okay.
Yeah.
So to me, I thought it was hilarious, one, that somebody would actually bring an article up like this. But two, it's real, dude. It's real. Not everybody that reviews games, there are guys that will go out and no matter what they play, they're awesome. Okay. Yeah. I'm not one of those guys. So I like to play games, but the question is, he also brings up, should you even make videos when you're not good at playing games? Well, and again, he feels that you should, because it's not always about, you're the best player at this. Right. It's about just showing your experience and being able to experience it. And I thought it was a great viewpoint, man.
Well, I mean, Twitch shows this all the time. There are Twitch streamers you can go to and watch who are professional gamers, and they're incredibly intense and serious about the game. And then you have people who are just as entertaining, have just as big following, and they're not very good. People go there for their personality, to laugh with them, to laugh at them, like they do with us. And, you know, generally just engage with individuals. So I think esports is bringing that competition into gaming at new levels, which I love. I love seeing esports on TBS and cable television shows, and it really getting some recognition. It's a lot of fun to watch those competitive sports. But it's also important that people understand not everybody's got the ability to be at that level, especially if you have responsibilities, a job, kids, those type of things where you can dedicate that time, but you still have fun playing games and you want to share that experience with people. And we don't want the gaming market to become closed in where it's like, oh, you can't game well, therefore you shouldn't game, type of thing. So I thought it was a really timely article, and I love the title.
Well, I mean, there are so many people, like guys in the Telegram group, who will say, hey, I wanted to play Rocket League with you, but, you know, I'm no good. And I'm like, I don't really care. You know, like, I don't care if you're
for us.
But it's those people. Okay, I'll bring up Michael Tennell again, because this is a guy who I started out playing Rocket League with, and he like kind of egged me on to buy it. And we have played over and over again on a, you know, every other night, daily basis. And I'm terrible at it. And yet he is still taking the time to play and not said, I have people who will say, I won't play with you. You know what I mean? Because I'm not good enough for them, especially now he won't play competitive, obviously, because I would like kill his diamond status that he brags about now. But it's okay to not be awesome at video games. You don't have to be awesome. It's the fun that you get out of playing them. So
that's what they're meant for at the end of the day. Now, there is some competition to it now, which is great, but we're not playing at that level yet. We're real close.
Real close. All right. So what have you been playing this week, man?
Listen, I was looking through some of the news we pulled. I saw that AIM article, and I thought to myself, I need to pick a game to play this week that fits in with going way back in time.
To Xfce?
Whoa. Those were fighting words, sir. Star Wars Dark Forces. This is a game you have to play in DOSBox, if you can imagine it's so old. It uses DOSBox to emulate this old classic Star Wars shooter, but if you haven't seen the new Star Wars trailer, it looks amazing. It is totally Geek Squeal worthy if you haven't seen it yet. Super excited about it. So maybe when I saw it out there on GOG, I thought to myself, it's $2. I've never played it. Let me go try it. And it's actually a lot of fun. You've got MIDI Star Wars music. So, I mean, what's not to love about that old Star Wars music? It's a first-person shooter. So you're going around destroying pixelated stormtroopers who, true to the movies, can't shoot worth anything. I mean, really, going all over the place. So you don't have to be fantastic to play it. I will tell you the controls are a little funky. You will have to do Control F1's the key, which will get you into the DOSBox emulators, keyboard settings, so that you can kind of play with those controls to get them to work for you. But once you've done that, it's actually a lot of fun. Have I talked you into buying it yet there, Rocco?
No, you haven't. No. Go on.
Typical. Anyways, if you love AIM, you're going to love Star Wars Dark Forces.
I didn't even write, dude. All right.
What else do we have in the gaming?
Well, we have a game coming out, and this is not... okay, so this is just a blurb we're going to put out there because we're not sure exactly where it stands. But Battalion 1944 is a competitive World War II first-person shooter. Kind of like the original Call of Duty series before it got all crazy. Right. And there's a possibility that it may have Linux support in the future. So the devs had originally said that there was not going to be Linux support. Mm-hmm. But apparently there has been an icon of SteamOS on the page on Steam for it. So that is supposedly saying that it has Linux support or will have Linux support at some time. But it could be just a mistake as well. So we're not exactly sure. There is an article talking about this over on Gaming on Linux. I'll put the link in the description so you can check it out. But it's a possibility. Right now, it's on Windows only, but this game looks really, really good. And if this came to Linux, it would be a huge game.
It would be. It would definitely be up there as kind of like a AAA title. The gun sound effects are beautiful. The environments are beautiful. Uses Unreal Engine 4. They're using real-world technology or architecture from World War II that they're implementing in the game. They're using motion traction sensors on real human beings to really capture that fluid movement of the characters. Looks very cool. I really hope it goes to, and comes to Linux. So this falls under the may give my bucks if it has tux. There you go.
Well, this also it does away with sort of the perk system where it's just it goes back to the original of you shooting other people, and that doesn't sound right. But you having fun,
right,
playing against other players instead of having a whole tiered system that you got to worry about.
Yep, definitely. So, in other news of hasn't come to Linux, so who cares? But
wow,
PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds just shy of 2 million concurrent players. You know how they're going to get to 3 million, Rocco?
How are they going to get there?
Port it to Linux. Then you'll get to 3 million.
They totally would get there if they did port it to Linux. There's no question about it. I mean, when I look at my Steam friends list, I would say 99% out of the 2 people I have on my friends list are playing PUBG. There's no question.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest games out there. It's not I don't know if it's a game that would interest you because I know you like those type of shooters, but it's very competitive. You know, you've got basically your environments constantly closing in to bring people closer and closer and closer until you're down to the final 2 who battle it out. I have fun watching it on Twitch. I have fun watching people play it on Twitch. But it's not one of those games with the limited time I get to game where I'd be like, I'm going to go pick that up because I know I wouldn't be any good at it.
Right.
It's kind of like, you're literally competing against people who are playing this all day long, every day. With that said, this would be such huge news if it ever did come to Linux. And maybe with the amount of people that they've already attracted and want to solidify that, just putting it in their ear there, port it to Linux.
That is a staggering number, though, dude. 2 million concurrent players.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. But Incredible. It's not a game that I personally prefer because I am not a scavenger game where you go find things and what you do is you survival games. Yeah. You basically get dropped into this area and the first part of you being in the game is you searching for things like different weapons and then you go along and try to be the last survivor. But no, it's not a game that I'm into, but there's so many people playing it.
Well, I know a game that you're into.
What is the game that I'm into?
Middle-earth Shadow of War.
Dude.
It has released, man. Now, you haven't gone into Windows to play it, have you? It's okay. This is one of your favorite games. You get a free pass here. No Linux support on release date, but it is coming to Linux. So that's why, additionally, you get a pass, because it is definitely one that will be coming in spring, hopefully. Now, there's some mixed reviews here that you didn't agree with, but I was looking through some of the reviews, and people were mad about the terms of service, which your response was, people read those?
I'm serious, dude. I saw it. Look, I loaded the game. I installed it. I preloaded it, and I opened it up, and the terms of service come up, and I'm like, okay, accept. I mean, dude, I run Chrome. Why do I need to worry about? I'm currently running Windows, and you really think I care about if they're collecting data? I mean, they couldn't. That's minor compared to what Windows collects.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, when you say you're currently running Windows, what Rocco meant is he boots into it to play this game only.
Yes. Yes.
Right now, he's not running Windows.
No, I'm running Manjaro Gnome.
There you go. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. We don't want people thinking this is going to become Destination Windows.
Yeah, right. Well,
So, but this game's got, some negative reviews because the terms of service is collecting data. Supposedly in there it says they can collect data from the users.
yep.
Also, microtransactions to death. People are saying. What have you experienced so far?
Okay, so right now there is no microtransactions because it just came out. Okay, so I'm sure that they're going to, add stuff to it that you're going to have to buy or that you may want to buy. But right now I'm just playing it and having fun. It starts out as basically it shows you what happened in Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, the first game. And then it just seamlessly launches into this game, which was totally awesome to get that to start out with. You had mentioned about people have stuttering graphics. I didn't experience any of that. It ran and played perfectly. And I had a blast playing it. So I don't know exactly what
Maybe
the problems
they've
are.
patched some of it, or it's with certain hardware potentially. I know you run an NVIDIA card. It looks like one of the people who complained said it was an NVIDIA card, but an older model. So hard to say, maybe some compatibility issues. But by springtime, Windows users will have worked all of those out for us, and we'll have a perfect experience playing the game. So definitely
I think it was worth it.
Really?
Yep, totally think it was worth it. You're able to change character swords and everything, where in the first game you had minimal areas of change your character. You could change what he looked like. That's it. Here you can change what weapon you carry, get new weapons as well. So I think it was totally worth it.
Nice. Well, one of the games I'm trying to talk you into, or one of the bundles, I guess I should say I'm trying to talk to you, is this week's Humble Bundle. Incredible value this week. If Humble Bundle should be one of those sites you save to your favorites. Everybody should have it saved to their favorites. Number one, a lot of it goes to charity. You can select what portion of it goes where with your charities when you buy these bundles, which is really neat.
I think that's the best part about it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, just from that aspect alone, check it out. Number two is I'm starting to see a lot more bundles with Linux games in there, which I love. And this is no exception. In fact, this is probably one of the best values I've seen on Humble Bundle. It comes with Borderlands 2, which is absolutely fantastic game, and Borderlands the pre-sequel, which is very, very good. Not as good as Borderlands 2, but very, very good in my personal opinion. And those games individually are $29 to $39 a piece. You can get this whole bundle with everything included for $10.
Yep.
And the only other game that plays on Linux there is Worm Unlimited, which it looks. I think it's an MMORPG that they took offline into a single player game. I don't know if it will be any good or not. It has mixed reviews, but just for Borderlands 2 or Borderlands the pre-sequel alone, it's worth the $10. So go check out the Humble Bundle. $10 gets you an awesome value. You can start loading down your Steam store. And I want to get Rocco in to some Borderlands because that would be so much fun. I think you love it.
Well, one update that I did want to say is Rocket League also had an update so that the textures are fixed for Farmstead.
Finally.
So that map, we played it last night, and that map showed perfectly with all the textures right. The transparent gold posts were there, so it looks awesome. So just quick hit.
Good. That's an awesome update. So that's all the news. Special thanks to our patrons, of course, for their support, all the listeners out there. And, Rocco, where can we find you this week?
Well, we're going to be on Friday Night Live, I can tell you that. It won't be special hat night, but you can still show up.
Oh, come on. I won't be there at all.
So you can show up on the Big Daddy Linux YouTube channel, and we will put a Zoom link there where everybody can join, and just join in. You don't have to be a technical geek in order to join in. The whole purpose of me starting that was that everyday users, anybody, could jump in and talk about their experience in Linux. And we usually try to keep it Linux topic related. Sometimes it gets a little out of control, but we have to veer it back in. But it's usually Linux related. So if you want to talk to everyday users about Linux, I encourage you to join us. And everybody is welcome, as long as you have like a decently quiet environment. And,
doesn't have to be perfectly quiet, but, you can't have chaos going on in the background because everybody's trying to talk and communicate and all of that. But if you do have chaos going in the background, then you could just listen.
That's it. Yep. So where are we going to find you, man?
Well, I am going to, obviously I did the DaVinci video this week on the 4K capture card, which is just awesome. So what did I have to do when I did the DaVinci? Well, I have to do a Ryzen build now to create a streaming PC. So hopefully this week you guys will start seeing some videos pop up of me doing the build. I've done builds before and how-tos, but I'll do a complete process showing the build from beginning to end. Now, it's not the Ryzen I wanted. I wanted the Ryzen 5 1600, but the wife was like, you don't need another computer. I'm like, I only have 6. I have to have a 7th one. So I convinced her on price to let me go ahead. So I only have the Ryzen 3 1200. It's not super fancy Ryzen chip, but if you know me, eventually I'll be upgrading that as we go every few weeks until I get to that Ryzen 5 1600 or more.
The base is there.
The base will be there. All the expensive parts will be together, and I can just start selling individual stuff and building it up.
There you go.
So we'll be doing some Ryzen build stuff out there. And, of course, hopefully Rocco will play some Rocket League with me. He's falling behind on the competition level. But, Rocco, tell everyone what happened when we decided not to stream our Rocket League.
Well,
this is a fact, by the way. This really happened. Not even joking. I told him, I'm not going to stream it.
Yeah, the other night we decided to play, and he says, no, we're not going to stream it. We're just going to play and have some fun. I said, okay, we're going to play and have some fun. I don't think we lost the match, did we?
We won every single match. Now, I will say, Rocco, you really were putting it to these poor kids. These kids didn't know what hit them. You were really doing well in the game. I felt like I was having one of my best games, probably because I was riding on your coattails, but we were winning.
That were winning, dude.
When we record.
I don't think it's happened. Like, where was Ski when we were doing this one, you know? Right. But no,
I can see his comment right now. Yeah, right, guys. Nice try.
Yeah.
Like your fish was this big, right?
Mm-hmm.
You caught. Yeah.
No lie. We didn't lose a game that night. So we did pretty good, but maybe this week, maybe we'll record some.
When we record it, we'll lose everything.
Probably. All right.
So,
that's it, brother. That's all we got, right?
Yep. That's it.
All right. So a big thank you to the Telegram group and each and every one of you guys who watch and listen every week. It's much appreciated. Everybody have a great week. And remember, the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Destination Linux podcast.